Hello, my friends. I hope you're doing well. Today is the 27th of March, 2025, and this is another political commentary video for you. Since I moved to Germany in late 2015, I was astonished by the interest of the German political elite and the German mainstream press about the Syrian refugees and Syria in particular. I didn't understand much why Germany is that much interested in Syria, and they're investing from their money, they're investing from their political energy, and they're investing from their intelligence gathering about the activities in Syria and outside Syria and the refugees, etc. Today, however, we may have received an answer from the horse's mouth. And the horse here is, of course, the politicians in Germany or those who represent the policies of Germany, especially Nancy Faeser, who is still the Minister of Interior, and also Annalena Baerbock, who is the Foreign Minister of Germany. They're going to be replaced soon, but they're still the officials and the representatives of the German state. So Nancy Faeser, it seems, she wanted to travel to Syria, and she canceled it. In the past few weeks, Annalena Baerbock visited Syria twice, and there hasn't been any talk about any prospects or possibility of a terrorist attack, whether in Syria or from Syria into other countries. There was no mention at all of the radical elements in the Jolani army and those who committed heinous mass crimes in the coastal cities, including mass executions of ethnic and religious minorities. They have not seen that at all. No mention, zero, nothing. It's very strange, right? I mean, especially that these politicians say that they are championing human rights and democracy. In any ways, Nancy Faeser, she wanted to visit Syria, and this is an article published in Bild, and they say, was Minister of the Interior Nancy Faeser the target of a concrete terrorist threat? The SPD politician and her Austrian counterpart, Gerhard Karner, broke off their planned joint trip to Syria at short notice. They were supposed to be brought from Jordan to Damascus by an Air Force plane on Thursday. A spokesman of the Ministry of the Interior said, because of specific warning from the German security authorities about a terrorist threat, Federal Minister of the Interior Faeser cancelled a trip to the Syrian capital Damascus planned for this morning before departure from the Jordanian capital Amman. The trip was planned under high security measures and was not publicly announced. The program in Damascus was limited to the main political talks, and the delegation was kept as small as possible. So what was the purpose of this potential visit? A spokesman of the ministry said, in particular, Germany and Austria are working intensively to ensure that serious criminals and companions with Syrian citizenship can be returned to Syria as quickly as possible. These issues should be discussed with the Syrian interim government as soon as possible. Now, this is very interesting because when I came to Germany in late 2015, in 2016, I made a grave mistake by expressing my opinion about the presence of some radical and criminal people from my country who infiltrated the ranks of the refugees and they arrived in Germany. And I have never mentioned any percentage. I didn't say they're minority. I didn't say they're majority. I didn't say anything. I just said I have met people from my country who support Al-Qaeda, who support ISIS. And I gave examples about people basically telling me things that are completely shocking. And back then I said, if anyone wants to come to Germany, at least this person should respect the German constitution and not to bring his own, rules and regulations with him to Germany. I don't understand why that was so controversial back then, which is not the case any longer. So what was 10 years ago or 9 years ago taboo or a radical right-wing talking point, it's now the norm. It's now normal. Even left-wing politicians are saying the same thing, including the Minister of Interior of Germany, who wanted to visit Damascus in order to strike a deal with the Jolani regime so that if there are any criminals among the Syrian refugees, if there are any let's say, people who are threat to the national security of Germany, they're Islamists, Takfiris, or they were former militants probably from this Al-Qaeda, or they have done some terrorist attacks here, then they could be deported back to Syria. I think that's a good thing. I don't know why back then this was very controversial. And my position back then and now is the same. Syrians had a reputation in Germany. Before the refugee crisis, nobody heard of a Syrian refugee in Germany. There was no such thing. And most of the Syrians in Germany were doctors, engineers, they were studying here, or businessmen. So everybody knew that the Syrians were hard workers, they were well educated, etc., etc., etc. And until this moment, the case is the same. For example, 8,000 Syrian doctors are registered in Germany. The percentage of the doctors in Germany, if you put the Germans aside, among the foreigners, Syrians come the first. 8,000 doctors. So imagine how many also from other professions. Of course, they are brilliant Syrians with brilliant skills and education background. Those are definitely will be an added value in Germany. But here is the catch. The catch is also that if you're going only to deport the people who can't be of any value to Germany, so you keep the best and then you export or send back those who are not the best to your economic needs, then basically you're taking all the brains and the skilled workers from Germany, from Syria to Germany. And this is a problem, right? Like Syria needed them in the past and needs them now and will need them in the future. However, the foreign minister of Germany, Annalena Baerbock, she made a controversial statement the other day from Damascus when she was asked about the fate of the Syrian refugees. And this is an article published in Tichys Einblick. This is a liberal conservative magazine, so they are, let's say, critical of Annalena Baerbock. So Baerbock, according to this article, is concerned that she has not yet brought enough citizens to Germany. When the German embassy was inaugurated in Damascus, she therefore asked for even more immigrants from Syria. According to the Federal Employment Agency, around 520,000 Syrians received citizen money in mid-2024. This cost taxpayers 341 million euros. I think this is per month. So out of 900,050 something Syrians, we have around 520,000 of them are unemployed and they receive money from, let's say, the job center, which is a taxpayer money we pay so that if somebody loses his job in Germany, they could receive reimbursement until they can find a job. But these Syrians, they have been here for around 9 to 10 years. So we have around 55%, I think, of Syrians who came after the refugee crisis. They're not working and receiving job center money. And this is, of course, problematic because if you bring hundreds of thousands of newcomers and they cannot integrate or start working and learn the language, then they will be, let's say, a burden on the German taxpayer, right? However, she says that she wants even more citizens from Syria and advertises in front of representatives of the radical Islamists during the inauguration of the German embassy in Damascus, first in German, then in distinctive Baerbock English. I mean, her German is not the best, by the way, but her English is the worst. She says, quote, "Germany is a country with no very strong birth rate. That's why we need migrants." She further said, "Therefore, we also need people who speak German. Unfortunately, it is not the simplest language in the world. That is why we have an interest worldwide in having German schools and German universities. Without this immigration, according to the chief minister, our country would no longer function." First, let's take a look to the video.
Germany is a country with not a very strong birth rate, so we need migrants, otherwise our country will not be running in the future anymore. Therefore, we also need people who do speak German, because unfortunately it's not the most easy language in the world. So we have an interest generally worldwide to have German schools, to also have German universities.
So you tell me if you feel there is anything strange about this statement. According to Annalena Baerbock and her party, in 2015, they had to receive millions or 2 million refugees, let's say back then, because it was a humanitarian crisis. And back then I argued and I said, yes, it is one of the factors, but the other factor is the demographics in Europe and the declining demographics of Europe. And that was deemed to be a radical right-wing fascist talking point back then. But that was the truth. And it wasn't like I was an expert in this issue, but you can see why they were so enthusiastic to receive all these refugees. And I'm not against at all receiving or not receiving, but being honest about these cases, like why Baerbock you want to receive all these refugees, or because there is a war. Yeah, that's one reason. What's the second reason which helps Germany or benefit Germany? Potentially, this is what they say, that we have to receive hundreds of thousands of new workers or cheap labor so that we can function our economy. But among this, so they want cheap labor for sure for some of the jobs here in Germany, but they also want the brains. That's why Germany is building, for example, German schools to teach German in, let's say, Lebanon, Syria, and other places in the Arab world, in order for the people to get prepared if they want to come to Germany and continue their studies or work, right? So in my opinion, this is, of course, very unhelpful for the growing and developing economies. Germany, in its position, is always able to attract people from around the world. But if you're a Syrian and you have a choice to go to Germany or you stay in Syria, you will choose Germany. But this doesn't help Syria. So if you have good intentions and you want to help Syria to reconstruct, you have to create incentives for them to stay in Syria and not to go to Syria to reopen the embassy so you can restart these programs of more controlled migration, like picking and choosing this time instead of inviting everyone to come. Now they will try to pick and choose from the skilled workers and from the educated people. And this is, of course, 100% problematic for Syria, and not only for Syria, for all the developing countries. So this is the truth of the matter, and this is the reality that I wanted to share with you about this German policy vis-a-vis Syria. I'm not attacking Germany. I'm not attacking the German state. I'm just criticizing and evaluating the policy made by individuals who are human beings, and they can hit and miss. So don't be irritated, dear German officials, if you watch this video. Now, we have an article. I wanted to show you a few things today. After Syria, Europe itself seems in a big dilemma, and they want to really create the conditions among their people to accept this increase of defense expenditure. Now, one of the ways they're trying to do is the EU, for example, they called for households to stockpile 72 hours of food amid war risks. And this was similar calls during Corona, right? EU households should stockpile essential supplies to survive at least 72 hours of crisis, Brussels has proposed. As Russia's war in Ukraine and the darkening geopolitical landscape prompt the bloc to take new steps to increase its security. The continuing conflict in Ukraine, the COVID-19 pandemic that brutally exposed a lack of crisis response capabilities, and the Trump admin's adversarial stance towards Europe have forced the continent to rethink its vulnerabilities and increase spending on defense and security. The new initiative comes as European intelligence agencies warn that Russia could attack an EU member state within 3 to 5 years, adding to natural threats, including floods and wildfires worsened by climate change and societal risks such as financial crisis. It's basically everything, right? Our friend Thomas Fazi says, fear-mongering on an extreme level. Be afraid. We don't know what, but something bad is coming. And when it does, be ready to lock down again. I also said in this regard, from lockdowns to war panic, it's all a game of fear. The elite keep the masses anxious and terrified because they know a scared population is an obedient one. The pandemic proved one thing. When people are frightened enough, they will blindly obey even the most absurd things. So they tried everything from the climate crisis, from Corona, and this time they're coming with a new package of fear box, and that is Russia is going to invade Europe between 3 to 5 years. Now, I'm very much interested in your opinion. If you think that Russia genuinely poses this type of threat, and whether or not Putin or the Russian Federation, the Russian army are going to invade the rest of Europe, which is, in my opinion, I can be wrong. It's an absurd, ridiculous claim. Russia doesn't even have the capability to occupy the Western Ukraine, let alone Poland, Czech Republic, and Germany. And this is, of course, going to cause a NATO intervention since those are NATO countries. However, we have NATO Secretary General Rutte. He insists that there will be no normalization of relations with Russia for decades to come. And this, of course, comes just at the perfect time for them to sell this narrative that Russia will be the boogeyman and Russia will be the enemy forever for the next years. And that's why we will not normalize with Russia and we will prepare for war and increase of the defense expenditure. But if you want to see what this Rutte, who basically sent tens of millions of the Dutch taxpayer money to a proscribed terrorist group in Syria, Jabhat Shamia, I think this was 2015 or 2016. So now he has become the Secretary General of NATO. I think it fits him. It's a good position for him after supporting a terrorist group in Syria.
Well, there will be no normalization of relations with Russia when the war is over. That will not happen. That will take decades because there is a total lack of confidence. The threat is still there. As I said in my speech, even if the war comes to a conclusion, the Russian threat is still there. They are building a war economy. They are spending so much money on defense. They are producing in 3 months an ammunition what the whole of the alliance is producing in a year. We are ramping up our ammunition production. Luckily, we have to. So there's no way that we can normalize relations with Russia after the war is over. You hope in many decades from now and post-Putin that there might be some, but I mean, I'm not optimistic.
The problem is not only with NATO, like there is this lack of competence, it seems, in the European continent. Like it has become a prerequisite or precondition for someone to become in a position of power, such as, the position of the EU chief diplomat. At least she has to be a diplomat, like it's in the job title, And then you have someone like Kaja Kallas. They're making a mockery of themselves and they are basically sending a lot of wrong messages around the world, a childish behavior and an incompetence and warmongering basically. And I don't know what are they really relying on when they speak in a very hawkish manner. And this photo was published by Kaja Kallas on her Instagram account, and I truly don't know what to say else about these things. Our friend Glenn Dizon says, why did the EU select as its foreign policy chief a person who states she doesn't believe in diplomacy with Russia, but wants the world's largest nuclear power defeated and broken into smaller states? Kallas has become the face of the EU's political immaturity and irrelevance. 100%. I don't know, when I was preparing this episode today, I also came across a tweet made by Keir Starmer, and he says, confirmed, ninja swords will be banned by this summer. When we promise action, we take it. I thought this is from the satire page of Keir Starmer, but I was wrong. It seems it's his real page and real account, and he's taking action against the ninja swords, guys. Amazing. Finally, guys, last video or the previous one, we addressed also the signal conversation between senior security officials in the US, which was leaked later to the press, which I don't believe it was leaked. It was a deliberate controlled leaking of some information to create a case against Yemen and also against Iran. This is how you prepare the public opinion when you are preparing for war. However, we have more details now about the signal conversation. And in one of the conversations, the screenshot is here. It seems that from Trump admins Bomb Yemen signal group that the Pentagon bombed an entire civilian apartment building in Sana'a because the Houthis, quote unquote, top missile guy was supposedly visiting his girlfriend there. This is according to Waltz. And dozens of civilians are now dead. I'm receiving reports that they couldn't even kill the guy. So they have dropped a bomb on an entire residential building. And this has really triggered a question in me, and that is, if the US can detect someone on the hit list in Yemen and can follow him going in a car to his girlfriend's home, this is what they say, why doesn't the US Army bomb him? Why doesn't the US Army bomb him on his way? If they know him going there, why don't they bomb him on the way? Why do they have to drop a bomb basically on an entire residential building? Am I asking the wrong question? Some people say, yes, you're asking the wrong question, because the real question is, what right the US has to bomb Yemen to begin with? And they're correct. That wasn't the premise of the post. The premise of the post was that if you're going to commit a crime, right, in another country and violate international law, why do you have to commit a bigger crime? Why do you have to kill all these civilians? If you know someone and you're following him, whether it's a satellite, whether it's a drone, whether it's an AI, whether it's his smartphone, and you know he's going there, if you're going to commit the crime, why don't you just kill him? Why do you have to drop 1 ton of explosives over a building and completely decimate it and kill tens of civilians? It's just crazy. I think this has become normalized, especially after the Gaza onslaught, and people have lost touch with reality that what Israel has done was abnormal, and they normalized the abnormal to the extent that people now, they don't even speak about killing of tens of people just because they wanted to kill one Houthi. So when the Gaza onslaught started, and I warned many people and I said, one of the objectives of this war is to normalize these abnormal, heinous crimes. So make no mistake, in the future wars, that's the norm now. Israel has made the roof so high, other countries will follow suit. And that's horrific. We're living in a very horrific times. And my gut feeling and what I'm analyzing here, it looks like Europe is definitely going to be more militarized. And that's scary. That's scary for me and for many people. And I don't want another war, and I don't want to leave another war. So, and I don't know what's the solution. If you know the solution, write it in the comments below, guys. I would be very happy to read and listen to your thoughts. If you like this video, guys, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button and check if you're subscribed. We are around 3,000 subscriptions away now from hitting the 100K goal. I'm very happy to make these shorter videos for you, and you're watching it more than the 1 hour, let's say, streams. But I will definitely continue doing streams. When I have a guest, we will do it a live stream. When I'm solo, I will do it like this, political commentaries. So if you like this content, guys, like, subscribe, share, like what the other YouTubers tell you. I don't like that word, but it is what it is. And if you like to do more and support this independent work I'm doing, you can check all the means and the links in the description below. And I think tomorrow on the 28th of March, I'm not going to be able to create a video. I'm not sure yet, but 90% no, because I have an urgent family matter here. So if I don't do it, I will definitely then do it on Saturday. So as I promised, 5 videos per week for you. Peace be upon you, upon your families. Salam.